Haidong! In this video, we're going to talk about reverse grip part 3. So we talked about stabbing in reverse grip, we talked about cutting versus slashing in reverse grip, we went through a few of the cutting angles. So what I'd like to do in this video is actually finish that combination from Yedo 3 and also just play with more of those ideas as well as introducing things from another source. That source, as with the previous two videos, again, this was all inspired by a video made by Let's Ask Seki Sensei. So again, the video is going to be down below. Highly recommend you take a look at them. So as with everything with transparency, if I'm taking something or at least taking an idea from Seki Sensei, I'm going to try to mention that. If I'm taking it from another source, again, like Kali or something like that, I'm also going to try to mention that. But first, let's take a look at the combination that we've done so far, right? So again, we've gotten close to the partner, right? We're gonna go offline to do a cut. We're gonna switch to reverse grip, plant it again, making sure we have a nice fulcrum point and make it easier to actually have accuracy and power. Turn, slide back as you thrust, pull out of the body, right? I'm gonna be going on angles here, stepping uppercut, stepping uppercut. Gonna use a hip check as I throw my weight into a slash from above, slash down. And the next move is going to be, we're going to come in next. So that's what we've done so far. The next move is in fact taken from Seki Sensei's introduction to this. So again, take a look at that video. He describes it much more succinctly and better than I can. But here is a twist on it that might be maybe a new perspective. So we talked about cutting angles in reverse grip and which ones are pretty good on their own and which ones are pretty lacking on their own. So we talked about the 6 before, right? So again, coming from on hand, coming down, down, across, across, upper, upper. Same thing going this way. Again, this is taken from Kali. Down, down, cross, cross, up, up. There are more angles, right? So there is the vertical angle going down, which have fun. So what you could do is maybe do like a hip check as you're going straight down this way. But as you can imagine, whatever power you're gonna get, that you do get from that hip check is gonna be much less than if you're gonna be getting it from that standard 45-degree angle cut. So you could do it, just not really worth it. Same thing with our offhand top corner. So this one is also pretty weak, and there's not really much we can do to assist that. But the remaining two, so it's the same angle but on each side, are the two vertical cuts coming up this way. So on your on hand, very easy, right? Even just looking at you, I can just be like, eh. Right? Not too hard. I can step with it, get a little more drive up if I need to. Even if I have my other foot forward, I can still get it so long as I'm not going to accidentally cut my calf, which would be bad, which is actually why, at least in Gumdo, when we do a vertical strike, we usually do step with it. First of all, to make sure we're offline, as well as getting a little more power behind that cut. So that one isn't going to be part of the form. It is something that you can still practice. It's just hard to do against a target because you're just going to do that, which is not as fulfilling in any really way. But the other side has a similar problem to our offhand diagonal, doing a vertical cut from here. You can do it. It's a little more powerful than this one, right? Because you can still use the hip to do the cut. You can do the step and do the vertical cut. It's not as effective as is, but something that you can do, again, this is taken from Seki Sensei, is to actually use your offhand to reinforce the cut. This is more likely going to be a slashing motion as opposed to a cutting motion. Again, cutting is when we have that strong impact on the cut, versus a slash is dragging the blade through. Again, you can do in reverse grip, you just get a little bit more, it's easier to do a slash. So what I'd like for you to do is taking it so actually from the form, right? So we just did our reverse grip cut, right? All I want you to do, I'll actually do it from this direction. Reinforce the back of the sword. I know it's kind of hard to see because this is a tube, more or less, right? But from here, reinforcing the back of it, again, trying to keep your thumb tucked in as well, so you're not just like, yeah. But reinforcing the back of it as you step with it vertical strike, right? The idea of this is not something I've heard in the past is this is a reinforced block actually in the form. The way I like to think of it is you're actually pushing the blade where it needs to go. For me, the target area is going to be underneath the armpit. For one, a lot of good arteries there. For two, if you can get it there, they're less likely to be able to finish their cut, right? Because if you're here, they can still hit you, like especially with the bottom of the sword, but it's not going to be as powerful. And you also will have some sort of cover at the same time. So what I'd like for you to do, again, a little bit weird to do against the target, hip check as you cut down, reinforce it with the back as you step up, right? Again, you can aim for other target areas. You can aim for like the floating rib, the thigh, really anywhere you want to go. But for me, I think it's the easiest to aim underneath the armpit or underneath someone's hands as they're trying to strike you. That will be slightly more of a defensive thing as well, so that if you're cutting their hand, they can't finish their cut as well. It's going to still mean they can still do something a little bit after, or as opposed to underneath the armpit. But what I'd like for you to do is just try that a few times, right? From here, hip check as I cut, reinforce the back as I come in with that vertical strike. So try that a few times. As you can probably guess, you can do reinforced strikes with pretty much everything on the off side, just it may not have the same help as just doing a normal cut. So you could do this, for example. You could do this with an uppercut. You could do this with a diagonal. So this one will be same thing as a vertical strike. It'll be easier to do as a push down as opposed to an actual strike. So you could do that with all the other angles. So try that as well. So let's review a little bit, right? So we got close to our partner, we cut, we switch, we tap, we turn, we throw our weight back, we pull out of the body, going off to the side, cut, cut, hip angle. As you're going to cut actually on this person, it's the same person you were slashing. Cut. If you want to, like in application, you're probably doing this against the same person, but in the form, going off to someone new, here. In the form, you're going to be doing this. So actually, let me show you what the Federation does, and I'm going to dial that like 5 feet back. So the idea of it is you're here in a bumse, fake, pop up, and you're going to tuck. And just so you see the rest of the combination, we're going to cut, and then we're going to cut that way. Okay, so for me, so what this is usually called by Federation Masters is a fake, which, right? So like if we're here, this is not a good position to be faking from, because this is if this is a block, for example, super defensive and not good at defensive, right? So like this is a defensive guard. This is a really good defensive guard. Like I could fake here and someone might bait to come up here. I can smack and strike. This, because first of all, the tip is now on my offhand side and it's just raised up here. This is not a position you want to be, this is not a position of power, right? So keep that in mind. So Federation Masters will say that you're just here, you're like, haha, come get me. And then you drop your blade down, exposing your head, and you're going to be cutting. So make that work if you can. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that a couple steps back and do a hard turn in application. So again, visualize what we just did. So we did a vertical strike here, ideally aiming on the armpit. You could get underneath the arms, but up to you, right? We're here, so we're in the body. Instead of faking, what I like to think this is doing is actually pulling the blade free, right? So it's in the body, pull it free, and then we're gonna duck and finish the combination. So have that idea in your mind as you're going through this combination. That's not a fake combination, it is more of a dislodge. And while we're here, right, tucking here, this is actually a combination I do like from this, because it's not an angular cut. So you're not going to do wee, right, as pretty as that would be. What you're doing is adding that translational energy, right? So we're here, we're actually going to be aiming in front and then behind, cutting here, and notice I'm going to slide back with the cut through. Same thing here. So cut front, cut back, cut front. So cut, drawing the body back, cut, drawing the body back, cut, probably out of frame, right? So let's try that again, right? I'll do it facing this way because that's the other direction I didn't go. So from here, dislodge, tuck, so sliding forward if you want, but if you're already close range, you don't need to. Cut, slide out of range. Cut, sliding back as you cut, cut, cut. And from here, you do a nice fancy put away, but you don't need to do that per se. So keep that in mind as you go through it, is that nice translational energy as you do your crosscuts. Another note that I would encourage you to have in your mind as you go through forms in particular, not every cut is a cut, if that makes sense. So for example, think about the application of this, right? So I'm allegedly in someone's armpit there, pull it through, again, getting the nice arteries coming in here. This is a cut. This is me trying as they're kind of, I won't say disarmed, but they're, busy, right? Aiming for below. As I cut, I'm using this to also get out of the range, right? At least more out of range, right? But this other cut isn't necessarily cutting someone, right? So the way I think of this is I'm cutting, drawing it free of the body, as well as just making sure I'm good this way. And then most likely I'll be going on another angle, not the way I just came. But from here, I can just make sure that I'm good. I have my space. And then for me, I would get back into normal grip just because that's a guard that I'm much more comfortable fighting in. But that is an idea that I want you to think about, right? So these cuts are mostly going to be used to make sure you're good space-wise, as opposed to in like games and movies, I cut you, I cut you, I cut you, I cut you, I cut you. And then, shower of blood, right? Unlikely, right? So keep that in mind as you practice. But that's the combination from Yedo, right? So I really like this combination. It's the most inclusive of all the major concepts of reverse grip that I really enjoy using. So practice that, again, knowing that it is in fact different from the Federation. If you're from the Federation, you might be like, what is this guy doing? But the main thing is I want you to always think about application as you go through something. You should always have a purpose as you practice something, as opposed to merely practicing something for the sake of practicing. So, yay. So with that, make sure you stay safe, stay humble, and keep training. Haidong!